Murray, welcome today. Thanks very much for your time. I know you've been racing today, bit of free practice this morning. How did that go for you, Luke, first of all?
Wet, slippy. No, it was really good. It was fine. It was a bit of a gamble with the tyre choice because it was half wet, half dry, but no, really good. I think ended up 7th, so happy days.
That's very good. Murray, yourself?
Well, it's a bit of a cluster for me, to be honest.
Okay.
We made a bit of a faux pas on tyre choices, so in the end we had to get the guys to run the dry tyres up to the pit lane, and we had to do a change in the pit lane. So I missed out on the first 10 minutes of the practice, but then by the time I got out, I think it was a bit of a case of angry riding, but it seemed to have paid off. I wasn't the slowest person out there, which makes a change for me anyway. So it was all right. There was a dry line, wet on the outside, so there was a few slides, a few hairy moments, but other than that, it was not a bad session.
Good. And are you expecting the weekend to be similar going forward in terms of changing weather?
Yeah, the forecast's a bit iffy. It's raining again tonight, I think, and then again tomorrow afternoon, so I think it's going to be a bit undecided for us, so it's just going to be a good tyre choice, I think.
Well, it's playing into Luke's hands because he likes the wet.
Yeah,
anyway,
I can't wait.
So,
Brilliant.
For me, it's going to be a 50p, 5p moment every time I go out on wet, so I'm not quite so keen on the wets because it's a different riding style.
We've got some questions from some of our customers down at Laguna Motorcycles, and I'll just fire them at you if I may. There's a couple that relate to each and every one of you, and there's a couple that you can both have a quick fight over. First one for you, Murray. Do you have your own road bike, and do you ride it day to day? And you've probably answered that question with the weather. And does it have some of the same modifications as your race bike? And that's come from Colin in Margate.
I've actually got a Triumph Street Triple, which isn't adapted. Well, it is actually, I'll tell a lie, it's got a rear thumb brake. And I've also got a Harley Davidson 48, which is adapted for gear change. I'm a fair weather rider. as you can tell, I don't get on so well with the wet, but no, they're the two bikes that I've got.
No problem. Question for you both. Luke, first of all, who is your most inspirational rider?
Oh, well, that's an easy question, that, isn't it?
You, mate. Murray, actually. Well. It used to be probably Valentino Rossi, but now meeting Murray is probably him, I think.
Yeah? Any particular reason, but a bit more specific? He's obviously good.
Oh, yeah, he's fast,
funny. Yeah.
He's funny, he's good looking. What more could you ask for?
Murray, yourself?
Well, other than Luke, obviously.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
I don't know, there's so many riders, I can't name a favourite. Just like I say, there's so many riders that I think that are just absolutely phenomenal riders. But then you've got the greats like Kevin Schwantz and Cole Fogarty and people like that I grew up watching them watching them race, so they're probably the all-time sort of legends for me.
Okay, that question was from Peter in Grantham. Right, now here's another fight for you both. Who is the fastest on track between you both?
Well, it's definitely Luke. It's just whether or not it's wet or dry as to how much faster he is.
Okay. And what sort of gaps are there between the pair of you at the moment?
At the moment it's 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So
Only a couple of paces normally, isn't it?
Yeah. I am getting quicker. I mean, for myself, it's a whole different situation because we're, as much as I hate to say it, we're kind of pioneering with what we're doing with my bike and me racing. So, the fact that I'm getting over, passing a few milestones now. I'm not the last round at Silverstone. I didn't get that. The time at Donington, I didn't come last. So, we're constantly like progressing on with me and my bike. So yeah, that's what I mean by it's a bit different between the two.
Well, on relation to your bikes, are your bikes performing better this year than last year? Have you noticed improvements in them? Or is that just yourselves improving and the bikes?
I was going to say I can get my wrist a bit further, stretching the throttle cable maybe, but other than that, no, there's not a vast amount of difference that I've noticed between last year and
well, this year's my first year, so it's a bit difficult for me to answer that. I'm really pleased with the bike. I think they're great. I was really impressed, but like I said, I didn't ride it last year. Exactly.
No problem, thank you. This is from Desmond down in Brighton. What is your favourite racetrack and why? Luke, you first.
Oh, I don't know. To be honest, a lot of the tracks, because this is my first year racing, like for instance, I've never raced at Brands GP before, I hadn't raced at Silverstone before. A lot of the tracks are all new to me, and I really like Donington. I think that's a brilliant circuit. But when I was doing a couple of club meetings last year, we went out to Anglesey, which I thought was amazing. I thought it was such a good track. It's quite new, and if the weather's good, it's right on the coast overlooking the sea. It's really picturesque, it's lovely, and that's probably one of my favourites as well.
No Phillip Island moments, seagulls on the track?
Yeah, something like that. It is a bit like that, isn't it? It's right there. But you need to go, mate. Treat you next summer. It's really good.
Are your best track?
I can tell you which one's my worst.
Go on then.
Alton Park, just because it's so narrow, muscling the bike through the corners, transitioning the bike from left to right through some of the chicanes and stuff, I really struggled with last year and this year. But I just tend to favour the faster, more flowing circuits. I'm loving the Brands GP. I never really sort of liked Thruxton until this year. Well, saying that, I've only really ridden it two or three times. And the other 2 times I crashed anyway. So.
Murray, you mentioned that your preferred tracks were the smooth and flowing tracks. Give us the sort of science behind that.
Well, I guess, the faster, wider the corners, it's easier for me to get around the bikes. To get around the bike and get through the corner, I can carry the drive and the speed that I need to maintain. But through the tighter, more where you got to muscle the bike through the corners is where I tend to struggle a bit more, because to get the bike up and over as quickly as what everyone else can, my feet are static and pretty much planted on the foot pegs, so I have to work around my prosthetics and maybe try and hang my top half off a little bit more to keep the weight over the bike, and then to stand the bike up I have to use my arms more instead of my legs, so pushing on the bar to get the bike up, and then once the bike starts moving I can then use my legs to get the bike up and over and to the opposite side through the corners. But that's where I tend to lose a lot more speed, and where people tend to sort of get away from me, just like trying to go from left to right quickly, whereas if it's a long left and then a long sweeping right, I can get up and over and I can just be more fluid with the bike, and it just sort of handles a lot better.
And Jamie Whittam has ridden your bike, I understand.
Yeah, I think he loved it. he certainly said it a few times. He rode it round here at Brands, and he was saying that the adaptions and that were really smooth and how he liked it. But to be fair, he wasn't really setting any sort of pace, and I think he missed a gear as well. So as much as he loved it, I can appreciate that it's not his bike. He's not going to go at any sort of race pace, but he thought the adaptions were really good and really simple to use, which works well for me, because anything that's too complicated you're going to struggle with anyway. So simple was nice. And but he actually said that he tried to keep his feet in one position on the bike, but he couldn't do it. He said his feet naturally wanted to go to the outside of the pegs or the toes on the back, or and he said that's where he sort of takes his hat off to what I'm doing, just because it's not natural for what you're meant to be doing.
Are there any modifications to your prosthetics that you might be doing in the future that might
I've drilled
aid
a couple
that?
of holes in the feet.
Okay, yeah.
Because I've got a stud going through the foot peg, and then we've drilled a hole in the boot so it just slots on.
Yeah.
That's pretty much we're going to carry over to next year. Depending on the bike that we ride, the button controls, the button shifter might have to be set up differently. That's something we're trying to look into and address for next year. Other than that, the socket's different. It's cut a lot deeper on the back of the legs, than it allows me to bend on the back of the legs, which means it's not great for walking. If I've got my riding legs on, you'll notice, because I'm either walking like a cowboy or I'm crying as I'm walking along, because it's not the most comfortable, to say the least. But that's what works for me and the way I ride.
Luke, yourself, your racing has come differently from Murray's. Just give us a little bit of story about how your hearing affects your racing.
Okay, well, unlike Murray's bike, my bike's got no adaptions. It's no different to anybody else's out there. But basically, my injury occurred. I got blown up in Afghanistan in 2011, and I'm deaf on my right ear and half on my left. Initially, I had, still ongoing, kind of, a lot of problems with balance, and because it damaged my own ear so much, I have a lot of, it's effectively like motion sickness, quite a lot of the time, and it's quite hard to deal with when it happens on like a day-to-day basis. So the longer it goes on, I'm kind of controlling it now. They're trying to find some medications and all sorts of stuff like that, and initially it was really hard to deal with. I just felt like really dizzy and sick and stuff like that. The hearing loss didn't really bother me because I couldn't hear anything anyway, but the tinnitus and the ringing of the ears is quite problematic for me, especially with like the lack of sleep and stuff like that. I mean, I'm only 17 but I look about 40. That's why, because I'm never just get any sleep. But that's the main problem I had to overcome was a lot to do with balance. But I'm finding the harder I work at it, and to be able to try and concentrate on something like the riding, it does help. I mean, I've had it a few times this season, especially after not sleeping so well. I get really dizzy and stuff. I think because at Thruxton this year, I said to Phil, I don't think I can ride because it wouldn't have been safe to ride and race. But just trying to do some exercises and like breathe and focus and just trying to get it's really hard to explain. But if you try and concentrate on something really hard, I can try and overcome it. But initially, I didn't think that was going to be possible. But I mean, like I say, it was in 2011, so it's taken me a long time to try and to get to this stage. And it's still ongoing at the moment, but it's everything's overcomable. That's what we're trying to put across, isn't it? That these things can be overcome.
Murray, yourself, why did you start racing? Was it something like a childhood dream, something like that? And that's from Bruce down in Ashford.
It wasn't so much a childhood dream. I mean, it's something that I would never have considered, just because of the cost of it all, being in the army. Yeah, to be able to afford to go racing, it was never easy. So to come into the British paddock and go racing, it's a dream in itself. But no, ambition-wise, the reason I started racing is because someone told me I couldn't.
Okay.
So that was red rag to a bull for me, and that was it. I proved them wrong, and I'm still here.
Good. Luke, yourself?
I just always wanted to do it. I've been involved with some BSB teams, and my father was part of helping out with the Superbike team as well. Helped run a team with the MV Augusta a few years back. And I never really ridden. I didn't start riding till really late. I bought a road bike, did it, and because of tours of duty and stuff, I was always away. Never got to ride it, and then thought I'll go on a track day and just loved it. I thought it was great. And then I was talking to someone about going racing, the same as Murray, and someone was like, "Well, you're not really quick enough." I thought, right, okay, I'll decide. And then that was it. I thought I've got to go racing. So, but it is an expensive hobby, so it was few and far between. But exactly why.
Thank you. Billy in Medway has asked, do you have any superstitions before the race?
It's little things, I guess, like what, always putting the left glove on and then the right, and then you tighten up the left, tighten up the right, and whether or not you just do certain sort of like stretches, or how you sort of limber yourself up before you get out on the bike. They're the ones for me, really.
Yeah, same. I'm exactly the same. I have to put my right boot on, then my left, and then I put my right glove on. If I put them on wrong, I have to take it all off and start again. I don't know why. It's just a comfort thing, I think. I'm not sure.
Murray, you mentioned that obviously you're leading the way, and the team is leading the way in terms of bike racing for yourselves. Is there anybody else following you up now that is coming to you for inspiration?
There is. I mean, there's not so much in the racing side of things, but we've had a lot of people come up and say that they never really thought they'd be able to ride a bike ever again. And since seeing me out on circuit, they've come down, they've had a look at the bike, they've jotted down what we've done, and they've gone out and done the same thing. They've gone out and got themselves back on a bike, riding on the roads, and you know, for me, it's absolutely great if I can get someone back on a bike that never thought it would happen again, and you know, it's a massive tick in the box for me.
Yeah, it is a good thing. Obviously, this season comes to an end fairly soon. Are there any aims that you guys have got for next season at all?
Well, ideally, we want to remain in the BSB paddock.
Yeah, sweeten up the sponsors to get some new bikes.
Yeah, that's the plan. We're not sure what's happening yet, but we are working towards staying in the BSB paddock. That's where we'd like to be, I think.
Yeah, well, I think for us to generate the exposure for what we're doing, it has to be BSB. You know, we're both looking at riding again next year with potentially a couple more riders. We got ideas and plans in the pipeline. It's just, you know, it's a bit too early to say definitively what we're going to be doing.
Okay. Luke, Murray, thank you very, very much.
Cheers.